Greetings, YouTubers. How's it going out there in YouTube land? Hopefully it's going pretty good for you. Well, today I'm going to show you how to take off a starter off of a 2008 Ford Fusion 2.3. Now this starter on this Ford Fusion is actually bolted up front here. What we got to do, we got to take off this air cleaner and take off a few little things here to actually have access to stick our hand up under the engine here, the side of the engine. You can actually do this from the bottom, but I find it's a lot easier just to do it on the side. So the first thing we got to do is go ahead and get this air box out of the way. There's a sensor here we have to unhook. Now I've already gone ahead and loosened some of the stuff up to make the video a little faster and a little easier for me. And get this air cleaner out of the way. And you can see you got some hoses here that you have to disconnect. Pretty straightforward. Then here is the air box that actually sits down in there. And it's actually kind of clipped on right there. There's a air duct that goes out around the headlight. So you have to kind of push that off of this, and this will release this. And now we'll put this out of the way. And the next thing you should do is get you a bungee cord. This is an antifreeze hose here. Kind of lift up on this hose a little bit and maybe hook it up here, because if you don't, this will kind of droop down and makes it a little harder to get in there, because we want to be able to get our hands and a tool back up under there to loosen some bolts up on that starter. And you can see my bungee cord is kind of like this, up around this air pipe that goes down to the alternator that keeps it cool. So you, if you have a longer bungee cord, you could probably hook it just about anywhere. But this is kind of how I set it up for now. Okay, the first thing we can do is go ahead and unhook a ground strap here that is on top of the transmission. This is a little 8mm bolt that goes in here. Get that out, and we'll put this off to the side. We'll put this bolt back in the case. That way we can't lose it. And by the way, you see some things here unhooked and missing. I'm actually taking the transmission out of this, but I thought it would be a great opportunity to show you guys how to take the starter out as I'm doing it. Now make sure you go ahead and unhook your battery terminal, disconnect the negative or the hot side. Now since I am taking out the transmission eventually, I've actually got my battery tray out, so my battery is disconnected. And there is what it looks like with the tray out, just if you're interested. A lot of room there. Now, since I'm actually taking the transmission out, I've actually got this bracket here off, but you don't have to take this bracket off, but I took mine off anyway because it's going to come off. But you can still leave this on here and you'll still have room here to pull that starter out. But for video purposes, it would be a lot easier if I just kind of pulled it out of the way anyway. And you can see with this out of the way, there's actually a lot of room here to get in there and pull that starter out when I get it unhooked. Okay, now we are looking at the starter, and you can see with this bracket that I took out of the way, it gives you guys a little bit better of a visual. But right there is the starter, and I've got two of the bolts loosened up. They are 13mm, so simply get you a deep well. Put it on the top one right about there. Kind of hard to see with my hand in a way, I understand. But there it is. We'll go ahead and get that out of the way. And there's a wire right here that you'll have to kind of fight with and kind of move it around a little bit. So we'll go ahead and get this bolt out for you. And there it comes. These are actually pretty easy to get to. This is why I say it's easier to do it on this side and just take the air box and get it out of your way. And just about got it there. Alright, so there is that bolt. It is out of the way, and you can see it's fairly long. And now we got one on the bottom, and I think you can probably see it a little bit easier. I'll put my socket down here. It's right there. And we'll go ahead and take this out. Like I said, these broke loose fairly easy. And there we go. And there's that one. This is why we got to use a deep well, because this here has got a the bolt is pretty long, and the nut is screwed on there quite a ways, so you got to have a deep well. And now if I shake this starter just a little bit, you can see it's ready to come out. So we got one more wire on the back that we have to take off. There's a hot wire and actually a little solenoid wire on the back. The little solenoid wire we have to take off, but the hot wire that you see right here, we can pull this all out together in one piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. See if we can do this with one take here with the camera. Okay, here comes the starter. And I'll flip it around to the back. And you can see we got one wire right here where my thumb is that we have to disconnect. And I think it's partially loose already. I got my socket on there a minute ago and got it most of the way off. Let's see if I can go ahead and get that. That is going to be a 10 millimeter. Okay, I got my 10 millimeter here, and I loosened it up as much as I could. Hopefully you can still see that. And take this off. Take the nut off, and don't lose this nut. Alright, we'll take the wire off, slide it off best we can here. And out comes our starter. And let me just kind of pause here and grab the camera so you guys will have a nice view as I'm pulling this out. And let's see if we can get the camera out here and the starter out one piece. Oop, let me reposition myself here. When you're doing this by yourself, it can get kind of tricky. And out comes our starter. And there we are. And you can see how it's kind of bolted on there. Kind of a clamshell design. And there is the starter gears and all that. And here is the back of it. There's the solenoid wire. And here is the hot wire that goes to it. You don't have to take off. Like I said, this cable will just come out. But you do have to take this ground off. Because if you don't, you're only going to get the starter out so far. Lastly, here is our solenoid wire right there. You can see where my finger is. There it is. It's kind of hanging down there. So that's how you take the starter out of this 2.3 Ford Fusion. And it's a lot easier here to get into than a lot of the Tauruses back in the early 2000s where you had to crawl up under and the starter was so close to the radiator there's absolutely hardly any room. Now you could probably lay on the ground and get the starter off, but I find it's just as easy to stand up here like this and just work like this and all that. And before I end the video here, let me show you the hole that it kind of set in, which is kind of right there. See how it kind of bolts in there? Right like that. And if I turn the camera a little bit more here, or zoom in, you can probably get a better look at it. But that's how you take the starter off. So I hope this helps you guys out. They don't go bad too often, but when they do, you got to replace it anyway. And sometimes if you want to save a lot of money, if you do it yourself, it makes you a happy person when you save money and time, right? So there you go. All right, so until my next video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.